Hello, I'm Ajoki and welcome to my cozy corner. I start every painting session by soaking both sides of the paper with some water. After that, I wait until the paper is damp or dry enough to start working on the technique I want to use. For this painting, I wanted to use wet on wet, so I started painting right away. I decided to do something different by using masking fluid to create line art for the skull and the stump to bring them forward. I don't feel comfortable using masking fluid on my works, mainly because something tends to go wrong when I'm using it. And I can tell this time wasn't an exception, which I'll ramble about later on. I drew the line art beforehand because I needed to do some troubleshooting with getting the masking fluid out of the pen. The nib collects dried up rubbery bits which clogs up the pen. I found out the tip was removable, which is great because the pen is refillable. I'm adding some base colors to the painting and let them spread on the paper. I'm happy how the right side of the background turned out. I especially liked the spread on the up-hand corner. I added some warm red layers to the skull to bring it forward, because the painting has a lot of green in it. The subtle red also makes the skull look older. Okay, now I will tell you the first, rather comedy mishap that happened with the masking fluid, which happened after I had applied the masking fluid. Masking fluid needs time to dry out completely before the work is ready to be painted on. I don't have much space to store the paper while it's drying out, and of course, it became an instant cat magnet. My cats were peacefully sleeping the whole time up until this point. I noticed my cat Gizmo around the paper, so I moved it elsewhere. He soon followed and was near the artwork. Once again, I moved the paper to another place. I made sure he didn't follow me and I turned my back for 1 second. And I saw Gizmo jumping next to the painting again. I was about 4 steps away, and before I was able to react, he stepped on the masking fluid and the paper got stuck into his paw. The whole scenario was straight from a comedy cartoon, as he started to panic to free his paw. The paper ended up flying on the carpet, masking fluid side up luckily, and no dents to the paper. However, I wasn't worried about the work at that moment because I was more worried about some masking fluid being stuck into Gizmo's paw. The good thing is, the path he stepped on was already dry, so he didn't have anything on his paw. He ended up giving me a very good scare. This is a good reminder to be very mindful of pets, because they are fast and curious. I used blue, brown, ochre yellow, red and green to add definition to shapes and pulled up the bone colors. I'm using warm colors to bring the skull forward. I like to work using thin layers of paint and piled up the shapes little by little. I wasn't sure if I wanted the tree stump to be grey or more brown in colors. I started with grey undertone, but I shifted towards brown color in the end. I was struggling a bit with the left side of the background. I didn't want it to pop out too much, but I wanted some definition in the trees. But layer by layer it starts to settle down. I'm adding some moss to the skull and the tree stump to portray timelessness. Being in the moment with no rush. The scenery behind the skull might change, but the stillness and calmness remains. The world around us can be busy, and being able to stay still for a moment is important. I kinda like the yellow color for the skull line art. I could experiment and make some popping line art by coloring a base tone underneath masking fluid for another painting. The second problem with the masking fluid started when it was time to peel it off. It is important to start the peeling process when the paper is completely dry, because moisture can and will destroy the work. I don't have any gadgets or gizmos to remove the masking fluid, so I only have my fingers. Except I have one gizmo, but I believe he had enough of artworks with masking fluid in them. Instead, Tasha wanted to lend her paw to help out. I make sure my hands are clean, because oils in hands can stick to the paper. Another important thing is to have plenty of breaks while removing the mask. Friction can damage skin and cause blisters. It took 2 days to remove everything because the masking fluid was sticky and stuck to the paper like glue. You can see me struggle to get it off, and I use a knitting needle to help to break the surface. I also formed a ball from the bits of masking fluid that were peeled off. It helped a bit, but in some areas the ball kept getting stuck to the paper, so I couldn't use it all the time. There are a couple of things that might have gone wrong. The pen I used spat out thick layers of masking fluid instead of thin layers. The second problem might be the time masking fluid sat on the paper, because it took 2 to 3 days for me to start removing it. The third thing might be the quality of masking fluid inside the pen. There is a chance my masking fluid has gone old too. I have used masking fluid many years ago, and I don't remember it being so troublesome to use. I am interested to continue practicing with it. Part of developing art skills is full of trials and errors. But the journey might be fun, full of rocks, or both. My experience with masking fluid is rocky candy road. I'm going over line art with thin layers of paint, so the color won't be flat. I wanted to leave some white bits as highlights. In some parts the paint didn't want to stick, and it's okay. I'm also adding some details and more depth to the shadows. I've learned to be more relaxed with my art. Before I might have deemed the work ruined because something went wrong with the process. But now I just see everything as part of the artwork and as marks that show how the piece was made. I needed to push the background behind to create depth, so I used gold blue and some purple to break off the green. The work looked soft, so I started adding some final details to bring out some textures on a dry surface. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. I would love to hear if you have some art tips or tricks to share. I let you enjoy the rest of the video. See you on the next one.